Carl Jung, a titan of psychological exploration, unearthed a truth far more profound and, paradoxically, more potentially dangerous than any mental illness. It wasn't about what was broken in the human mind, but what was extraordinarily awake, the unique gift of seeing everything others overlook. This capacity, which he termed differentiated perception, allowed certain individuals to decode the subtle language of the soul, to read the fleeting micro-expressions that betray true feelings, to sense the undercurrents of hidden emotions, and to grasp the intricate psychological patterns that remained entirely invisible to the majority. These perceptive souls possessed an almost prophetic clarity, effortlessly seeing through social masks, instantly detecting the subtle distortions of truth, and feeling the unspoken, unconscious tensions that hummed beneath the surface of every interaction, every gathering. Jung labeled this discovery dangerous, not to condemn these individuals, but to highlight a profound challenge. These extraordinary beings often found themselves isolated, utterly exhausted, and struggling to forge lasting, normal relationships. Their struggle wasn't rooted in instability or pathology, but in the immense psychological toll of perceiving a reality so much richer and more complex than those around them could comprehend, a cost that, tragically, went unrecognized and unaddressed by society. Today, we delve into Jung's most profound discovery about those who perceive everything, and why he believed this rare ability is not merely a danger, but a powerful crucible that either shatters you or forges you into something truly extraordinary. The revelation of this truth began with a patient he meticulously described in his private notes, a deeply introverted, intuitive soul who sought his guidance in 1913, precisely during Jung's own tumultuous psychological crisis following his pivotal break with Freud. This patient, embodying what Jung would later recognize as the rarest of personality types, possessed what he called undifferentiated, intuitive perception. She could step into any room and immediately sense its psychological atmosphere, like a living barometer of human truth. She knew instinctively who was weaving a lie, who carried the silent weight of emotional pain, who harbored secret resentments. Jung marveled. The patient displays an extraordinary capacity for perceiving unconscious contents in others, but this faculty appears to cause her considerable distress rather than advantage. She found casual small talk impossible, for she saw through every social facade as if it were glass. Meaningful friendships eluded her because people felt exposed and deeply uncomfortable in her discerning presence. Even holding employment proved difficult, as her very being subtly disrupted the delicate, collective unconscious agreements that allow groups to function in their often unexamined ways. Jung realized he wasn't treating a sickness. He was observing the profound consequences of a consciousness so advanced, so piercingly clear, that it became a solitary beacon in a world unprepared for its light. A perception too differentiated for comfortable social survival. He documented her uncanny ability to describe people with startling accuracy, noting, "She speaks of others as if she has access to their private thoughts and hidden motivations. When I verify her observations through careful questioning, they prove remarkably accurate." This was no psychosis, no delusion. This was a consciousness so finely tuned it had become socially potent, even dangerous. But Jung's journey into this mystery revealed something even more unsettling. Because this patient's extraordinary perception seemed to defy conventional explanation, Jung began investigating what he would later term participation mystique, the psychological phenomenon where individuals with highly differentiated intuition become overwhelmed, even absorbed, by unconscious contents emanating from others. He penned in his Red Book period notes, "There are those among us whose psychic apparatus is so finely tuned that they absorb not merely conscious communications but the entire unconscious atmosphere of their environment." This, my friends, is the quintessential deep thinker's dilemma, a pattern Jung himself courageously identified. The very qualities that make you invaluable, your unparalleled ability to discern complex patterns, to question embedded assumptions, to think with fierce independence, are precisely what make you a perceived threat to those who benefit from the comfortable slumber of shallow thinking. You've felt this sting throughout your life, haven't you? In school, when your why stretched into one too many profound inquiries, teachers dismissed you as disruptive. This isn't merely personal shadow work. This is the profound weight of ancestral trauma, the searing sting of cultural shame, the corrosive grip of societal guilt, and the simmering collective rage that has been passed down through countless bloodlines and communities. Jung astutely observed, "The foundation of all mental illness is the unwillingness to experience legitimate suffering. But someone, somewhere, has to experience it. Someone must carry what others refuse to feel, lest it erupt in destructive ways. That someone," Jung concluded, "is the empath." Jung wisely noted, "The danger lies not in the perception itself, but in the psychic isolation it creates. When one sees clearly what others cannot or will not see, one becomes a living mirror that society, in its collective unconsciousness, often cannot bear to look into. This creates what Jung called the problem of the superior function, when your greatest strength, your most profound gift, paradoxically becomes your greatest burden, separating you from the rich tapestry of collective unconscious participation." But Jung discovered the real danger wasn't merely the perception itself. Because people with highly differentiated perception see others' unconscious contents with such vivid clarity, they often become inadvertent targets for what Jung extensively documented as shadow projection. In this phenomenon, individuals unconsciously attack the perceptive person for reflecting back what they stubbornly refuse to acknowledge within themselves. Jung wrote in Psychology of the Unconscious, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment and especially on their children than the unlived life of the parent." He astutely discovered this principle extended to all relationships. When someone's unacknowledged shadow is reflected back through another person's clear perception, the unconscious mind faces a stark choice: courageously integrate the shadow or defensively attack the mirror. Jung documented this pattern repeatedly in his clinical work. The person who sees clearly gets blamed for creating the problems they are merely observing, like a weather forecaster being accused of causing the storm. His patients with differentiated intuition experienced this constantly. When they would gently suggest that someone seemed troubled, that person would explode at them for being negative or creating drama. When they'd express concern about obvious problems, they'd be accused of being judgmental or manufacturing issues where none existed. Machiavelli wisely observed, "A wise prince must learn to be alone with his thoughts, for in solitude he discovers whether his mind is truly his own or belongs to the crowd." Yet, this is precisely where many falter. They mistake the emptiness of loneliness for the richness of solitude. Loneliness is a state of emotional dependency, a yearning for external validation to feel complete. Solitude, by contrast, is a profound state of emotional sovereignty, a deep grounding in your own purpose that renders external validation unnecessary for your function and flourishing. Not because they cause problems, but because their presence reveals problems that already exist, simmering in the collective unconscious. Jung observed, "The bearer of superior perception becomes the repository for all that the group cannot consciously acknowledge about itself." This pattern explains why these individuals don't just feel misunderstood. They feel systematically targeted by a force they can't rationally explain, a silent resistance to the truth they embody. But Jung's most disturbing discovery was still to come, for he observed that overwhelming perception manifested differently in different individuals. Therefore, he identified 4 distinct patterns within the introverted intuitive type, each representing a unique way of processing unconscious contents from others, like distinct musical instruments playing in the symphony of the soul. When your company trumpets innovation but then systematically marginalizes those who propose genuine, paradigm-shifting changes, you are seeing their shadow. When society preaches equality while meticulously maintaining systems of entrenched advantage, you are seeing the collective shadow. Jung wrote, "The feeling intuitive lives in a state of perpetual emotional contagion, experiencing the unlived emotions of everyone in their environment." Type 2. The thinking intuitive. These individuals see complex psychological patterns and predict behavioral outcomes with startling accuracy. Jung observed they could forecast relationship failures, career disasters, and personal breakdowns months before they occurred, not through linear logical analysis, but through an unconscious, almost clairvoyant pattern recognition. They are like human chess masters, seeing moves on the psychological board long before others. Jung noted, they possess an uncanny ability to perceive the logical conclusions of unconscious processes that others cannot yet see. Type 3. The sensation intuitive. Jung documented patients who could sense the physical manifestations of psychological states in others, detecting illness before symptoms appeared, sensing fatigue before it was acknowledged, or feeling the subtle bodily tension that indicated emotional distress. These individuals are living barometers, serving as early warning systems for psychological and physical disease in their environment, their bodies echoing the silent truths of others. Type 4. The pure intuitive. The rarest type Jung encountered combined introverted intuition with what he called an undifferentiated auxiliary function. They saw everything, an endless torrent of insight, but had profound difficulty organizing or expressing their perceptions coherently. Jung observed, they live in a state of perpetual overwhelm, receiving vast amounts of unconscious information without adequate psychological structure to process it constructively. Like a boundless antenna receiving cosmic signals without a translator, a raw, untamed potential waiting for structure. There comes a critical moment in every empath's journey when the shadow absorption reaches an unsustainable point. Jung termed this the dark night of the soul. But for empaths, it's even more specific. It's what we call shadow saturation. This is the profound moment when they have absorbed more collective darkness than their individual psyche can possibly process. This isn't merely depression, though it may manifest with similar symptoms. This isn't just anxiety, though the feelings may appear familiar. But unlike money, once you spend a moment of attention, you can never reclaim it. That precious moment of mental energy is gone forever. Therefore, protecting your focus becomes even more critical than safeguarding your bank account. And here's where the magic unfolds. Once you begin to guard your attention with such deliberate care, you develop what I call laser consciousness. You can effortlessly cut through complexity, perceive patterns others miss, and solve problems that overwhelm everyone else. Your value, your unique contribution, increases dramatically. Danger 1. Collective unconscious disruption. Jung wrote, "The individual who perceives too clearly threatens the collective agreements upon which social cohesion depends." When someone sees through the shared illusions that hold groups together, the unspoken agreements to ignore certain truths, they become a destabilizing force, a truth teller in a land of convenient fictions. Jung observed that organizations, families, and entire societies function partly through collective unconscious agreements about what will and won't be acknowledged. Here's the most crucial aspect. Shadow recognition is not about becoming cynical or cultivating a sense of superiority. It is about developing what Jung called conscious awareness, the profound ability to see reality with crystal clarity in all its complexity and imperfection without being consumed or embittered by it. This is precisely why deep thinkers who master shadow recognition become incredibly effective. They can deftly navigate the intricate web of complex social and psychological dynamics that leave everyone else in a state of perpetual confusion. It's about intelligently designing your life so that the right choices become automatic, effortless. Most people, tragically, approach discipline backwards. They attempt to white-knuckle their way through challenges, relying solely on willpower, which is a finite resource. Consequently, they burn out, abandon their commitments, and inadvertently confirm to themselves that they cannot be trusted. The Machiavellian approach is entirely different. You design your environment, your schedule, your very existence, so that the choices that serve your highest good become the path of least resistance. In 1914, Jung made a discovery that would forever reshape the landscape of psychology. He realized that the vast majority of human conflict isn't truly about the surface issue people are arguing over. It's about something far deeper, far more primal, unconscious psychological projection. Jung's second hidden law is projection detection, the refined ability to recognize when people are unconsciously externalizing their own internal conflicts, insecurities, and unacknowledged aspects of self onto external targets, often onto you. Here's why this law is absolutely essential for deep thinkers. You are, by your very nature, a prime target for other people's projections, because your depth, your insight, and your very way of being often trigger their own deeply buried insecurities. When someone calls you arrogant for holding meticulously researched and well-articulated opinions, they are often projecting their own fear of intellectual inadequacy. When family members declare, "You're too sensitive for noticing subtle emotional patterns," they are projecting their own discomfort with the messy landscape of feelings. Instead, it's about learning to work with it consciously, to transform from a passive absorber of collective pain to an active, empowered translator of collective unconscious material. Tesla experienced this constantly. When other scientists dismissed his ideas as impossible, they were projecting their fear of their own limited thinking, their inability to grasp a larger vision. When Edison, fiercely protective of his own legacy, derided Tesla's alternating current system, he was projecting his immense personal investment in an inferior direct current technology. Jung himself faced this when Freud, clinging to his intellectual throne, accused him of being disloyal for daring to develop independent theories. Freud was projecting his fear of losing intellectual control, of being surpassed. Some will attempt to subtly sabotage it. These are, in truth, your adversaries. And some will merely ignore it completely. These are, for your journey, simply irrelevant. But the most insidious reaction will come from those who attempt to make you feel guilty for daring to change. They'll utter phrases like, "You're not the same person I used to know. You've become cold. Maybe there's genuinely something wrong with me." Projection detection unveils the liberating truth. Most criticism directed at deep thinkers says absolutely nothing about you and everything about the projector's internal state, their unacknowledged fears, and their own unresolved conflicts. Here's how to develop master-level projection detection. The empath learns to give form to the formless, language to the unspeakable, and voice to the unheard. But here's where Jung's understanding becomes truly revolutionary, offering a blueprint for humanity's evolution. He realized that individuals who successfully integrate their shadow don't just heal themselves, they ignite a ripple effect that heals the collective. Every single person who courageously brings unconscious material into consciousness contributes to the grand evolution of human awareness, one conscious step at a time. Third, recognize projection timing. People tend to project most intensely when they are feeling threatened, inadequate, insecure, or directly confronted with their own limitations. A deep thinker's natural tendency to analyze, to question, and to see beyond the surface often triggers precisely these uncomfortable psychological states in others. They overshare their struggles, broadcast their insecurities to the digital world, and prematurely announce their grand plans before they've even begun to manifest them. They unwittingly give away all their psychological leverage before the game of life even truly begins. The truly powerful individual keeps his cards close to his chest, not because he's hiding something shameful, but because he profoundly understands that revealed strength often becomes expected strength, and that quiet power is often the most potent. But when you become unreadable, something fascinating unfolds. They are unconsciously driven to transform the dense shadow material they've absorbed into something profoundly useful for collective consciousness, like turning compost into fertile soil. Jung identified archetypal patterns that repeat throughout human history, woven into the very fabric of our myths. The awakened empath embodies what we call the shadow awakener archetype, individuals who serve as potent catalysts for collective consciousness evolution. This archetype appears in myths and stories across cultures and across time. The oracle who speaks uncomfortable truths, the prophet who reveals what people don't want to see, the artist who fearlessly expresses collective pain, the healer who makes visible what has been hidden. Jung wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe." The shadow awakener faces the opposite, yet equally profound, challenge. They must avoid being overwhelmed by the tribe's unconscious material while still courageously serving their function as a collective mirror. Relationships end, and you stay centered in your own worth. People betray you, and you observe without breaking your inner peace. But this does not imply that you become emotionless or uncaring. It means you become unshakable. You develop what I call fortress consciousness, a mental state where you are fully engaged with the vibrant tapestry of life, yet never at its mercy. But here's what most people fail to grasp about reaching this sublime level. It's not about becoming invulnerable to pain. You must accept that suffering is an inherent, albeit temporary, part of existence. These boundaries operate on multiple vital levels. Physical boundaries that protect the empath's precious energy, emotional boundaries that distinguish between personal and absorbed feelings, mental boundaries that separate the empath's own thoughts from collective mental projections, and spiritual boundaries that maintain a deep connection to their authentic self while serving their archetypal function. While the world was tearing itself apart, he identified the psychological process that allows certain rare individuals to remain psychologically sovereign, profoundly centered and authentic, no matter how turbulent the external world becomes. Jung called this process individuation, but what he truly uncovered was the third hidden law, conscious individuation, the systematic, deliberate method for becoming the person you truly are, rather than the person others expect you to be, or the roles society tries to impose upon you. If you are building this fortress of the mind, declare, "I am undisturbable." This transformative process requires what Jung called the transcendent function, the extraordinary ability to hold opposites in creative tension until something entirely new and profound emerges. The shadow awakener must be both sensitive enough to absorb shadow material and immensely strong enough not to be destroyed by it. If you've ever felt like your sensitivity is actually your deepest strength, you are indeed embodying this truth. Tesla embodied this principle completely. His radical deep thinking made him virtually unemployable within conventional systems. So, he didn't just adapt. He forged his own path, creating his own laboratories, his own rules. His isolation from mainstream science didn't stifle him. It became the crucible that forced him to develop revolutionary innovations that fundamentally changed the world. Leonardo da Vinci lived this principle centuries before Jung identified it. His boundless deep thinking made him an outsider in every single field. He touched art, science, engineering. So, he didn't specialize. He became a master of multiple disciplines, synthesizing knowledge in ways no one else could. Nietzsche, too, experienced this profound transformation. His unparalleled philosophical depth made him incompatible with rigid academic institutions. So, he stepped away, developing his own singular system of thought that continues to influence thinkers across centuries. Here's how conscious individuation works for deep thinkers. First, accept, with unwavering conviction, that your psychological makeup is fundamentally different. Stop trying to think like everyone else. Stop apologizing for seeing patterns that others miss. Stop suppressing your brilliant insights just to make others feel comfortable. Embrace your unique operating system. Jung wrote, "The first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego. The second half is going inward and letting go of it." For shadow awakeners, this process is profoundly complicated by their archetypal function. They must develop a strong enough ego to handle the immense collective shadow material they carry, and then, paradoxically, learn to let go of identifying with that very role. The integration process involves what we call conscious role management, understanding when to bravely engage with collective shadow material and when to wisely retreat into personal authenticity and self-care. This isn't avoidance, it's sustainable shadow work, a rhythm of engagement and withdrawal. Jung observed, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." The shadow awakener learns to ride this pendulum consciously, moving gracefully between individual needs and collective service without being thrown off balance. Fourth, actively seek out, or proactively create, communities of other individuated people. Jung maintained extensive, enriching correspondence with deep thinkers and kindred spirits worldwide, forming a network of intellectual support. Tesla connected with inventors and visionaries who genuinely understood his perspective, fostering a sense of shared purpose. Deep thinking does not necessitate complete isolation. It demands a conscious, deliberate selection of relationships that nourish your authentic self. This requires what Jung called appropriate detachment, caring deeply without attachment to outcomes, offering the seed of truth without needing to see it blossom immediately. Jung understood that successful integration creates what he called the wise fool, someone who combines deep, ancient wisdom with a childlike openness and wonder. The integrated shadow awakener embodies this profound paradox. They carry a profound knowledge of human darkness, forged in the crucible of their own experience, while simultaneously maintaining an unwavering hope for human light. This delicate balance allows them to work with shadow material without being consumed by despair. Deep thinkers, however, possess the inherent psychological capacity to tolerate this discomfort, to lean into it, and through that profound engagement, transform it into unparalleled wisdom, resilience, and true self-knowledge. This is precisely why Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Most people never claim this sacred privilege because they are simply too afraid of the deep psychological work it demands. But you, my friend, are different. Your deep thinking has already been preparing you for this extraordinary journey. Now, here's what Jung never explicitly told anyone about the profound art of weaving all three laws together. So, here we are. You now hold the understanding of Jung's three hidden laws, the powerful frameworks that deep thinkers employ to see through everything and to transform their inherent depth into an unshakable power. Shadow recognition, the ability to perceive what others deny about themselves and society without succumbing to bitterness, cynicism, or judgment, but with profound clarity. The shadow awakener's very presence creates what we call consciousness contagion. Their integrated authenticity unconsciously invites others to examine their own shadow material, like a subtle yet powerful, energetic transmission. Jung observed that when enough individuals in a culture begin integrating their shadow, it creates a morphic field that makes shadow work easier, more accessible for everyone. The collective unconscious begins a profound shift from repression toward conscious integration, a collective spiritual awakening. We are witnessing the nascent stages of this shift now. More people are recognizing that traditional approaches to mental health, relationships, and pervasive social problems aren't working because they fundamentally ignore the deep dynamics of the shadow. Tesla mastered all three, and in doing so, revolutionized technology. Leonardo da Vinci embodied all three, rising to become the quintessential Renaissance genius. Jung himself integrated all three, fundamentally transforming our understanding of the human psyche. But this process is neither comfortable nor quick. Jung wrote, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown." Shadow integration isn't about solving darkness. It's about outgrowing the very need to deny it, to push it away. The Shadow Awakener models this outgrowing process with grace and power. They demonstrate, through their very existence, that it's possible to acknowledge collective darkness without being paralyzed by it, to feel collective pain without being destroyed by it, to carry collective shadow without losing individual identity. This modeling effect creates profound permission for others to bravely begin their own shadow work. People see that it's possible to face difficult truths and not just survive, but thrive, to feel deeply and remain functional, to be exquisitely sensitive and yet profoundly strong. There's also something Jung discovered about what he called the collective shadow, the pervasive psychological forces that specifically target deep thinkers, attempting to keep them isolated, ineffective, and perpetually questioning their own sanity. Understanding these forces is absolutely essential for safeguarding your mental energy and strategically deploying your unique insights. And then, there's the profound question of what comes after individuation. Because once you've mastered these three laws, once you've become truly psychologically sovereign, then what? Jung had specific, unpublished ideas about the deep thinker's vital role in society, a vision he never publicly revealed. Jung understood that archetypal embodiment always comes with a cost. For shadow awakeners, this cost is often profound loneliness. They see what others cannot or will not see, which inevitably creates a sense of isolation from those still living unconsciously, clinging to their illusions. Jung wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself." Shadow awakeners often struggle to find others who can truly understand their unique experiences or deeply appreciate their sacred function. The question is, are you ready to stop suffering from your profound depth and begin wielding it as the extraordinary superpower it actually is? Thank you for watching. See you in the next dimension. If you're ready to continue this journey of radical self-discovery, subscribe and check out my video on Nietzsche's 3 Forbidden Strategies, where I reveal how to break free from psychological programming, completely and truly claim your own destiny. Jung wrote, "Where love reigns, there is no will to power, and where the will to power is paramount, love is lacking." Genuine relationships for shadow awakeners are characterized by mutual consciousness, respect, and shared growth, rather than unconscious neediness or emotional dependence. These relationships are rare, but they are profound connections between individuals who have done their own shadow work and can truly appreciate each other's authenticity and depth. But the isolation, paradoxically, often serves a profound purpose. Jung observed that individuals embodying archetypal functions frequently need periods of solitude to process the immense collective material they carry. The hermit phase isn't punishment, it's a sacred integration time, a period of deep inner alchemy. During these periods, shadow awakeners often discover their most profound creative gifts. Jung wrote, "The debt we owe to the play of imagination is incalculable. The dense shadow material they've absorbed becomes raw, potent material for artistic expression, innovative healing modalities, or profound spiritual insights. This is the magnificent gift that balances the immense cost." Shadow awakeners often develop extraordinary creative abilities, deep spiritual insights, or a powerful, transformative healing presence. They truly become what Jung called wounded healers, individuals whose personal integration of shadow material creates profound healing possibilities for others. The gift isn't separate from the wound, it emerges directly from it, like a lotus from the mud. The very capacity to absorb collective shadow becomes the miraculous capacity to transform it. The sensitivity that once felt like a curse blossoms into a sacred calling, a divine purpose. Jung wrote, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Shadow awakeners embody this principle with every fiber of their being. They don't just talk about consciousness, they live it. They don't just teach shadow work, they demonstrate its profound fruits. Jung envisioned what he called the transformation of consciousness, a collective shift from unconscious projection and repression to conscious integration and awareness. Shadow awakeners are the advanced scouts of this transformation, fearlessly exploring territories of consciousness that others haven't yet dared to enter. This isn't a comfortable revolution. It's a profound inner upheaval. Jung wrote, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." The consciousness revolution requires accepting, rather than condemning, shadow material, which challenges every religious and cultural tradition based on rigid good versus evil thinking. Shadow awakeners bravely model this radical acceptance. They demonstrate that it's possible to acknowledge darkness without being consumed by it, to feel collective pain without becoming victims of it, to carry shadow material without identifying with it. This modeling creates what we call consciousness permission. Others see that radical acceptance is survivable, even empowering, and begin to attempt it themselves. The revolution spreads not through ideology, but through embodied example, one conscious soul at a time. But this revolution faces enormous resistance. Jung observed that collective unconsciousness serves important social functions. It maintains group cohesion through shared denial, creates convenient scapegoats to carry collective shadow, and preserves power structures based on projection dynamics. Shadow awakeners threaten these entrenched structures simply by existing consciously, by being their authentic selves. They refuse to carry projections, decline to serve as scapegoats, and model individual authenticity over stifling group conformity. This refusal profoundly disrupts unconscious social contracts, and the resistance can be fierce, even violent. Jung wrote, "Show me a sane man, and I will cure him for you." Society often pathologizes those who see through collective illusions, labeling them as mentally ill, rather than bravely examining what they are revealing. However, the consciousness revolution is accelerating, gaining unstoppable momentum. More and more people are recognizing that collective unconsciousness creates far more problems than it solves. The dense shadow material that cultures have repressed for so long is now erupting in symptoms that can no longer be ignored, like a volcano demanding release. Jung predicted this eruption. He understood that what remains unconscious doesn't disappear. It grows in power until it can no longer be contained. The choice becomes stark: conscious integration or unconscious explosion. Shadow awakeners offer a third transformative option: conscious transformation. They demonstrate that shadow material can be integrated creatively, alchemically, rather than explosively. They model the profound possibility of individual wholeness within collective consciousness, a beacon of hope for humanity. You weren't born broken. You weren't born to fix others' brokenness. You were born to be a mirror that reflects what urgently needs to be seen. A translator who gives eloquent language to the unspeakable, a sacred bridge between the unconscious depths and conscious awareness. Your profound sensitivity isn't a curse, it's a divine calling. Your extraordinary ability to feel deeply isn't a weakness, it's a superpower waiting to be wielded with wisdom. Your tendency to absorb others' emotions isn't a pathology, it's a powerful prophecy. You are the early warning system for collective consciousness, a spiritual seismograph. But prophecy without integration becomes suffering, a burden too heavy to bear. The empath who remains unconscious of their archetypal function will be consumed by it, lost in the collective labyrinth. Only through understanding their true, magnificent purpose can they transform from a passive absorber to an active, empowered awakener. Jung believed that individuals who successfully integrate archetypal energies become true agents of evolution. They don't just heal themselves. They contribute to the healing of consciousness itself, raising the vibration of humanity. They become what he called culture creators, people who generate new possibilities for human awareness, pioneers on the frontier of the soul. This is your invitation, your sacred calling. Stop trying to heal what cannot be healed, and bravely start awakening what needs to be conscious. Stop carrying shadows that belong to others, and courageously start reflecting them back, transformed by your awareness. Your darkness was never meant to be eliminated. It was meant to be illuminated, and in that illumination, both you and the world around you will profoundly transform.